Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Jesh, and I'd like to welcome you to our Pilot Controller Forum tonight. I am one of the FAST Team lead reps in the Long Beach FSDO, and I'm also the Vice President of the Fullerton Airport Pilot Association. And I'd like to welcome aboard our Fullerton pilots tonight. This is the third Tuesday of the month, which is the night that's usually our Fullerton in-person meeting at the airport there. And so this opportunity came up to kind of join forces tonight with the Long Beach Airport RSAT meeting, which will be Thursday, and we're going to prelude that with this meeting. And the idea is we're going to bring together airport management, air traffic control, runway safety people, and get them together with you, the pilots who fly out of this airport, hopefully on a regular basis, and talk about what's your experience been on the field and how we can make things work better for you. So I've got several announcements we'll be making along the way here. I would like to kick off by welcoming in Nate Morrissey, who is the FAST Team Program Manager for the Long Beach FSDO. And Nate, you want to go ahead and kick off a poll? Can you do that while you talk?
Oh man, you're asking a lot, Mike. Good evening, everyone. All right, let's see. Yeah, so we'll launch a poll right now. If you guys would take a few minutes to fill that out, we'll do a couple welcomes and hellos. But I want to thank Mike Jesh. He's one of our FAA safety team lead representatives, so he helps do a lot of outreach. But tonight we got a great night for you. Like Mike said, this is advance of our runway safety action team meeting that's happening tomorrow. So we want to get feedback. What's working, what's not. If there's any taxiway issues, runway surface issues, we're going to dive all into that. We have a great group of panelists. And what we're going to do is explain what an RSAT is, some things that we've seen at Long Beach. And then at the end, not at the end, but here pretty quickly, we're going to open it up to Q&A, which will be great because we have airport operations, we have air traffic, we have runway safety people here. So don't hold back. If you got any questions you've been dying to ask, I think you can ask questions anonymously too. We just ask to keep it kind and professional. So on that note, any questions you have, please put it in the Q&A if you can, not in the chat. Because the FAA, we take note who doesn't follow instructions, then we're going to have to send you a letter. Just kidding, and this is recorded. I'm just teasing out there.
Nobody wants any letters.
I'm just kidding. We don't do that. We email now. Anyway, so that's all I got. I'm going to manage the chat for Mike in the Q&A. So I think we probably had enough time to do the poll. So you want to finish up this first poll, or?
Yeah, it looks like we got about 90 responses. We got almost 100 people in the room here tonight. So that's almost everybody here. So you want to end that and then publish the results here. It looks like over half of us here are private pilots, about a quarter with commercial tickets, and then the rest with students and ATPs. We've got several student pilots here tonight. We only had one last night, so that's great. I'd like to welcome our new pilots on board here, or in the progress of becoming pilots. That's awesome. I'm really glad you're here to maybe get a little behind the scenes view of what happens, how we run some of these airports around here. Let's see, then the next question there, everybody answered who's got an instrument rating, and we're a little over half with an instrument rating, and another handful working on it. That's great, welcome. And then we got a bunch of flight instructors here. Wow, 3/4 of us well, 3/4 are not flight instructors, I should say. I was looking at the wrong bar there.
Sorry, when you're done, Mike.
Go ahead.
What I was going to say too is I want to thank all the flight schools that participated and the FBOs that participated in our questioning. We reached out to everybody on the field and asked them what's working and what's not. So one of the things that we're going to address tonight which was one of the bigger questions, was, do we have to call tower when leaving the run-up area next to 26 left? So that's coming.
I'm sure we're going to cover that.
We're going to get there. All right.
Yep. Okay, so let's see, you're sharing that. Let's go ahead and do the next one then, which is a little bit more directed at your experience operating in and out of Long Beach. Let's see, so that was the first one there. What kind of tickets we got? Here we are. So if you would give us a quick check here. Are you based at Long Beach? How often do you fly here? Have you ever had any sort of a problem on the ground, or especially on the ground, but in the air as well at the airport? And I left you the option there, prefer not to say. If you stepped in a little bit too much and you don't want to admit, I promise Nate's not going to send you a letter based on what you see coming in here.
Yeah, only emails now. It's
or email.
Saves the planet.
You get a return receipt requested email.
But what's interesting is the findings. We did the same meeting last night at Van Nuys, and we found, I think it was like 10% of the participants on there either had some type of surface deviation or had a pilot deviation or an incident. Not damage-wise, but some type of occurrence, which was interesting. And this stuff happens, guys. It's normal.
Yeah, it happens. It's part of the operation here. And part of the idea here is we all get together, we express to the airport management, to air traffic control, and to the runway safety team what kinds of things you're having difficulty with. If you had some sort of a problem, it's likely you're not the only one who's ever had this problem. And we'd all like to learn from whatever happened in that case to try to prevent yourself from ever doing that again, or somebody else even better.
Just as a reminder for all the people coming in, if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A. All right, I'm going to end this poll, Mike. We got about 80 people.
So we got a couple of short presentations here. Let's see, who was on my menu to bring up first is, I had that note in here somewhere. First one we're going to bring in is Carl Zeitel. I hope I'm saying that right. Did I say that right? Carl, go ahead and turn your camera on and unmute. Carl is the Long Beach Airport Airside Operations Manager. So he's kind of the guy who takes care of all the signs and stripes and markings around the airport. He's got a couple things he's going to chime in here regarding some construction projects upcoming at the airport. So Carl, come on down.
All right. Hey, I'm unable to do my camera for some reason, but nonetheless, I'm Carl Zeitel. I'm with the airport. I've been with Long Beach for 20 years. I started with McDonnell Douglas and Boeing, and I started my first flight, did my first solo when I was 15 off what is now 26RA. So been at the airport for a little bit of time. One of the question and answers, QA answers, they asked, why is the Juliet 4 exit blocked? It used to be easy just to taxi directly on Old Bravo directly into the Ross ramp. That was part of a geometry study that required us, because it had direct access onto the runway, and it's a current hotspot, but it was an issue where pilots were heads down in the cockpit and then crossed the coming off of the Ross ramp and then crossed directly across the runway 26 left there at what used to be Bravo, which is now Juliet 4. So that's kind of it's all part of the design stuff. If you look at all the Lima 4 and the Delta 4 and all that, that's all required now within the new design standards to try to make it so pilots don't have direct access onto a runway from the taxiway, that you kind of have to do a little bit of a jog. So yeah, it's not as easy getting off, and not having the Gulf connector is not as easy to get back, and kind of going around the new Echo. But there was all rhyme and reason for that. But it definitely makes it a little bit more complex than it used to. For most of the pilots that paid attention, it was never a problem. But we have to answer for the vehicle pedestrian deviations and the pilot deviations and the things that spark up these RSATs that then get into being hotspots and whatnot. So just wanted to answer that. So basically we have some construction ongoing here at, if you guys have been at Long Beach lately, down at the Lima section between Lima 1 and kind of where the old Gulfstream used to be. We had some pavement that we had replaced in 2008, not that long ago, but unfortunately it was done in asphalt, and where the two tunnels are at, we never could get the compaction with the tunnels. And so we were constantly having breakups. If you look at this satellite picture, you'll see all the new colored pavement in these like little patch spots across, especially on the Spring Street Tunnel and the Lakewood Tunnel. We would just develop failures. So this is all being done in cement now, and they're redoing a structured cage system that's over the Lakewood Boulevard and Spring Street to reinforce it. So it'll be in concrete, and it should last for quite some time after that. So that project will probably take us until about midsummer to get completed. We have a shortening of the runway right now, which shortens it to the Delta 2 location. So it's still beyond the threshold, but we're short from Delta 2 down to Delta 1, Lima 1 for the inlets at Lima 1, Lima 2 that we're building that are right within the edge joint of the runway itself. So that's we're a little delayed on that. It looks like we got about another month to go, hopefully a little sooner before we can open full length. And it kind of prevents some stuff from being able to get in here. We had a request for Air Force One again, which we hosted earlier in the year, to see if they could come back, and they're unfortunately we're not able to have the full length of the runway. And in January, around January, February timeframe of next year, we're going to have a complete electrical refit of runway 1230, which requires us to get in and actually do the light cans and the touchdown zone lights. And so we're going to have some nightly closures, and then we'll have 3 weekend closures, but we don't have those published yet. We're just working on those. We're just getting ready to get all the information to do the safety management panel on that. So upcoming for that, but look forward to that in around the January, February timeframe. And it'll be nice to get the lighting fixed in that, because we've got some aging wires and whatnot and some issues with some of the cans, but that's pretty much it for what we've got going on. If you have any other questions, I'm going to be here for the rest of that night, and I can pipe in if there's anything that's relevant.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we've got some questions that are coming in that look like they'll be more directed for air traffic control when they come on in just a couple of minutes here. So that's all I can see right now as far as airport structure and light signs, markings kind of issues. But I'm sure we'll get some more. So if you hang tight, we'll get some more questions for you going very shortly. Okay, so let me stop that share here. And let's see, the next person I'd like to bring along is Joe Santoro. Joe is the FAA Western Pacific Region Runway Safety Team Program Manager. So this is the guy with oversight for a lot of the markings at Long Beach and a lot of other airports in the Western states. He's one of the guys who roped me into helping out with us here tonight, and I'm happy to do it. So Joe, come on down. What do you have for us?
Thanks. You were a pretty easy rope, by the way. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Short rope.
So thank you everyone for being on. This is a really important outreach for us. If it wasn't mentioned, I don't remember it was, that following this meeting on Thursday during the administrative day, there's a Runway Safety Action Team meeting that is put on by us, Runway Safety Program in Western Pacific Region. Some of you might have been to Runway Safety Action Team meeting in the past. Air traffic managers do conduct one every year. If you're interested in an airport in particular, contact that manager, and they will certainly get you an invite to their meeting. This meeting is a little more broad in that we're using regional personnel and the FAA to look at the airport and the process at Long Beach through all the different angles, air traffic, flight standards, the airport side, and so on. And we're using folk from the region in our various specialties. And the other thing, just to clarify a little bit, I'm a little bit loose on the word oversight. I would say that, just so you all know, we come in Thursday and don't do any kind of inspection. We're not inspection. We're just there to look at what we can see and identify things that could be better, things that are going well, and then, create an action plan. So I leave that regulatory stuff to Airports District Office and the Airports Division in particular on the airport side, and then of course flight standards on the pilot side. So I will share my screen. My computer's kind of sluggish, so I think instead of using some of the internet piece, I'm just going to show a couple slides here for the data. Going to share screen.
You should be able to do that.
Yeah, should happen now. Tell me if you see it, I'll make it bigger. Okay, tell me, does it get bigger?
Yep. That's better. You're still in edit mode and not present mode.
Oh, I am, hold on. Okay, so where I click that.
Yep. Nope, still didn't take.
Didn't happen. Okay, hang on.
Get a bigger hammer.
Yeah.
While we're doing that, Mike, did we
Yes.
share the LGB experience poll?
We did not. Let's talk about that a little bit. So about 3/4 of the people in attendance here are not based at Long Beach. So we got a lot of itinerant local transient pilots. That's great. We got about 1/4 are based there. So it's great to have your input as well. Looks like a pretty even mix about how frequently you fly there. I know I myself get in there probably at least once a month, maybe a little bit more than that. But looks pretty even as far as opportunity to operate here at Long Beach. Interesting, 15% never operate here. So I'm kind of curious why you're here, but we're glad to have you. It's just kind of interesting. And then we got a handful of you, not much. It's actually a lower percentage than last night. Admitted to having been involved or witnessing one of these kinds of things, a pedestrian deviation, a vehicle pedestrian deviation, a surface incident. Nobody's been involved in a runway incursion. That's good. We had a couple last night at Van Nuys. A handful of controller errors, and a couple people prefer not to say. Nobody admitted to that one last night, so that's kind of interesting.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
Good. We got a little demographics here, the experience level at the airport. That's great.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing that poll. While Joe's doing that, Jermaine, we're gonna introduce Jermaine here in a minute, but real quick question for you, Jermaine. Somebody had asked, when will the tower be open to tours again? Any comment on that?
The current situation is that we're restricted due to COVID protocols still, and that's at a national level. So I mean, there's no telling when that's going to change. So just stand by, and once it is, once we're able to start doing it, we'll reach out. Let the base facilities know.
Okay, thanks, Jermaine.
Not soon enough, I think, is the short answer for for most pilots. We had a question that might be aimed toward Carl about the taxi hold line in the run-up area. Let's zoom in. He didn't say which run-up area. I'm going to guess you mean the south side run-up area here. The taxi hold line in the run-up area with an actual taxiway hold line. So I'm not sure what you mean. This is a non-movement area boundary, and that's the difference. We're going to get into this a little bit more. Who is going to cover that, Joe? Is that going to be Joe Santoro? Is that going to be you, or is that ATC?
Non-movement boundary line. I will take the first cut.
Okay. Feel like jumping in now?
I'm going to ease into it.
Okay.
Okay. I'm back. I apologize if it got bumped off. Am I good to go for you, Mike?
You got the aircraft.
Okay. I've heard that before. Okay, so, and I had to move cameras, by the way. That was part of the problem. So I'm over here now. Runway incursion. So a lot of you have heard the term, some of you have not. So I just want to level set everybody. Runway incursion is an incorrect presence on the surface of a runway. That is a surface for takeoff and landing. It's as basic as that. If you get on the runway incorrectly, inadvertently, without authorization, it is a runway incursion. If you get onto a taxiway inadvertently, incorrectly, improperly, then that is a surface incident. So a surface incident is simply an incursion that's not on a runway. Then beyond that, when we look at all of these events, and runway safety does look at every surface event nationwide that is reported by air traffic control up through their reporting system, that they can be primarily caused by several avenues. One could be a pilot deviation, which of course is where a pilot takes an action or inaction or violates a FAR. They don't necessarily have to violate a FAR, but they could take an action or inaction which causes them to be on a runway incorrectly or a taxiway, and you have a pilot deviation. If the controller is the one who is not taking a particular action or taking a particular action that's not the best or not correct, they could have an event too where there's a runway occupied by an aircraft that shouldn't be there. That'd be an operational incident. Vehicle pedestrian deviation, as you get the pattern, it's the same thing. It's a vehicle or a pedestrian on foot or on a skateboard or on a bike, whatever it may be, getting onto a movement area, runway, taxiway, without authorization. And then one final category we have is other. And so that's where it just doesn't fit those other three categories. And other typically would come out to something like a maintenance problem or an aircraft problem. A good example is you land, turn off the runway, go to hold short of the parallel runway, your brakes are weak or have failed suddenly without warning or notice, and you roll past the whole line. So that we would categorize under other. And then finally, we categorize them by severity, meaning really how close was the event, to being a collision. So if you have no other aircraft involved, or there's quite a bit of time and space distance between two aircraft, then that would be a severity D event. If you go further toward proximity, if you will, get closer, you go to a severity C event where you do have time and distance to take action. Action is taken in the normal course, if you will, of flying or controlling the traffic. And so that would be a severity C. There would definitely be two aircraft involved at that point. Then you get into the B and A categories, and those are the most severe events where they're really characterized by little time or space or distance to make a correction. And actually there's an inadvertent, evasive action, which would be taken by the pilot or the controller. That really kind of summarizes when we get into the A and B events. So that just gives you a little background on some of the lingo and jargon that we might mention throughout this short session here. So I'm going to go over to the operations, and when Tower speaks a little bit, they might be able to speak more to this if they'd like to, but just in a nutshell, I'm just showing you 12 full months of airport activity, where you see the total ending February is 341,840 operations. That's busy. I'm going to show you a trend graph momentarily where you'll see the dips and the ebbs and flows, and I believe I'm correct in saying their traffic's moving up. You can also see just generally where the air carriers fall out, and then air taxi, general aviation itinerant, and then general aviation local. There's somewhat more local than itinerant, but there is a lot of GA itinerant at Long Beach. So the mix, it's quite a mix. There's not a lopsidedness per se that I can see. And there's quite a number of carrier operations, as you know, if you fly out of there. Let's see here. The trend, this is one of the trend graphs. Starting with the line real quick, that's the traffic count we were talking about, but this is by fiscal year going back to 2015. And if you look, you can see the count at Long Beach hovering into 300,000 range. It took a dip in here, started to pick up again, and right around the same thing. And here's interesting. Long Beach was not a victim of COVID in regard to total traffic count. I'm sure the carrier ops went down. You guys could speak to that if you like, but GA seemed to be healthy as can be during 2020. And then you see this trend on Jermaine or Joe, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm just projecting that given about half the year we're in, you're on trend to meet or exceed last year's count. Would that be close?
Yes.
Thought so, yeah.
What happened to 2021?
Hang on a second. Yeah, thank you for asking that. Totally, I didn't see it, and out of sight, out of mind. Actually, there were no events in fiscal year 21, so there is no bar that's plotted in our database for that. I'm glad you reminded me because I do forget that. So, and this is the thing to look at. You see the uptick in trend from 15 to 18, and then you see a very definite downward trend And now we have some upward movement again, which of course we want to watch and look into. But I would say that, and Carl, if you can tell me, you probably know when some of the geometry changes were affected. And I'm going to guess that right around in 18 or coming out of 18, some of your key geometry relative to particular hotspots, in particular the one that used to be Bravo and 2.5, right? And maybe Juliet and 3.0 were completed. Would that be a fair guess?
Yeah, kind of closer towards the 2018, 2019 point.
Okay.
That was about when we started really getting the majors out.
Okay, well, and you can see with the data, there's a big drop. And as that construction was completed and those geometry challenges just designed out of the airport, I'm quite confident that has a lot to do with why we're seeing that drop there. The other line is just a runway incursion rate per 100,000 operations. That helps us level set one rate against another airport that may have more or less, significantly more, significantly less traffic.
So just to be clear and to spell this out, the purple part of those lines, the bottom part of those bars are pilot deviations. These are occurrences where a pilot was found to have made a mistake or not done or not done something he shouldn't or shouldn't have done.
Mm-hmm.
And then the orange, the OI, that's an operational incident. That's what, Joe? Would you define that once again?
Yeah, it's a similar concept. In air traffic in some way did not pursue their operation properly, or to cause an incursion, or they did something different, incorrect, that caused an incursion.
So a controller error, basically.
Basically.
Okay. Thank you.
And let me say this too, while Carl's on, the VPDs, as you see, are green. And Carl's and team at the airport's been very successful. As you can see, the last VPDs were in 2016 that were reportable. And things like airport access often come to mind at many GA airports in terms of making sure that air operators who are authorized to be on the field are staying in their areas. Operators are allowed to go on the airport movement area, have the training, and they follow procedure. And you can see that's the case here at Long Beach, at least as the data shows. So, and especially given the construction that occurred through 2018, 19, and so on, and still now. So that's a great record for the airport vehicles. These are the severity A, B, C, D events. If you look from 2019 backwards, the blue and the green are very typical. That's pretty normal. An airport that has any amount of operations, such as Long Beach, would have a lot of severity Cs, usually more Cs than Ds, which is what you see here. Long Beach has had a very tight severity A back in 2016, and a couple, and there are some, these are Bs that have occurred more recently. So clearly we're looking at those. We're working with air traffic to identify areas that can be improved upon, or what happened basically. And I'm going to make a certain point too in just a minute that, and I think you know this, but it's not always just the pilot or just the controller or just the vehicle driver. There's often issues that cross those operations during the operation, cross those operators. And so and I say this to emphasize that while we go back here and talk about OI, PD, VPD, we're not trying to point any finger here. We're just putting it in a bucket where we're saying this is would be probably the primary cause, if you will, of the event. There's usually often other items in there that occurred that could have either been done or been not done to help resolve the situation before it came to be an event. Last 5 years at Long Beach, what you see here are events plotted, blue being pilot deviation, green operational incident, and purple are runway excursions. And again, you don't see any, red would be vehicle pedestrian deviations, which we don't see. So this just gives you a kind of a overview of the last 5 years of what it's looked like. If you had a chart, and Carl, I don't know, I do have that chart. If you don't have it, I can bring it up later for the before and after shot on the geometry. But you see a gaggle of events here, here. What you have to realize, and I can't show you here, is that this runway, as many of you know, used to go all the way through 30 over here. And then taxiway Bravo used to go all the way through 30, was then 25 right, kilo 3025 right, and up to what was Douglas and eventually Boeing. So if you see, you just can't get there now, right? You're gonna end up, I think this is paved now, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, I don't recall what that is, if that's pavement or something else, or Green Island, but you can't get there and you can't get here. So those kinds of geometries where you have a taxiway that's leading directly toward a runway, and you would expect to or need to turn prior to that runway at any airport, I don't care if it's Long Beach or anywhere else, is a rather challenging area. I'm just jumping forward now to just fiscal year 2018, and you see the conglomeration of events here, this hotspot again. You see fewer here. Of course, there's only a year's worth of data here, but you notice that in this time frame, there are definitely fewer. And if I just continue to 2019, even fewer for that particular year. So this is just to demonstrate the trend in general, and a positive trend at that. And then we're not going to go in depth on these events, but to provide some idea of the connectivity between pilot and controller, we do have, for example, I'll just thumbnail a particular event, an operational incident that occurred with a departing runway 12 with a pilot deviation, actually at the same time in the same event, if you will, with an aircraft that did a touch and go on this runway, but the aircraft pilot did not have a clearance to do any kind of a touch and go landing, take or stop and go, anything option. There was no clearance issued, obviously omitted by the controller. The controller allowed an aircraft to depart here with the thinking that this guy was cleared to land. That's what the plan was, and it was one of those things that happens to pilots too. I know I did that. I'm sure I did that. You listen to the recording later, you don't hear it. That is succumbed. We pilots and controllers both succumb to that error, if you will. So you really have an operation, pilot deviation for an incorrect presence on a landing, because a touch and go is a landing and a departure, and then one on the departure, and you have one here because this aircraft incorrectly was issued takeoff clearance and departed. So I wanted to point that in particular because there's any number of things that could have occurred on either the pilot or the controller side to have avert that, actually keep it from actually developing. And I think that's one of the best examples really of that. And just extrapolate that to any airport you go to, any situation where you have, airplanes near each other. I do want to note.
I'll ask the question, Joe. What would have happened if that aircraft on what's now 8 right had done a go around instead of a touch and go?
Well, yeah, first off, let's just go with the idea that this departure incorrectly rolled or was cleared for takeoff. You might still have an operational incident here because there's an incorrect presence with that departure. But as far as the overall situation, you have a go around happening, let's just say before the threshold, which would be a very normal occurrence, and one to maintain separation between these two aircraft, right? So you have this appropriate separation from an air traffic world. And also, though, in a realistic, more practical world, now you have time, you bought yourself time to maneuver, right? Time and distance. So a go around here definitely would have aided the situation whereby the aircraft had to be peel off much closer to 1-2, right? Than they might have if they were going around over here. Does that cover it? Or you can add, do you have any other ideas about that, Mike?
Yeah, I just worry about the situation where the guy on 8 right did a go around, something was wrong with the landing, an unstable approach, for instance, and went around. Meanwhile, the pilot departing 1-2 was legitimately given a takeoff clearance. Now you got converging traffic, and both of them are okay to be doing what they're doing.
Right. So, and I'll defer to air traffic on specifics on that. But that would have to be deconflicted for sure. And that is probably being addressed, or at least considered during the actual planning of that operation, that a go around is always a possibility. So actually, maybe Jermaine or Joe, can you speak a little bit to that?
I was just going to say that'd be something they can handle.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
So for this situation, if there was a go around, we're planning. So the plan would not to be to clear an aircraft off of runway 12 while that aircraft on 8 right is on his approach. He would either need to be told to exit the runway, or we visually see him exiting that runway before we issue that takeoff clearance. We're not going to anticipate, departing runway 12 and, anticipating that, okay, we're going to have this 8 right land. It's going to be something more tangible where, I do tell him exit the runway. If that makes sense.
Fair enough. Yep. I think so. So, Joe, is it time to tackle the run-up areas for 26 left?
Let me see here. We can. So yeah, let's
got a lot of questions on that right now.
Let's go back to the idea of an incursion. So an incursion, for our purposes, air traffic, can only happen in a movement area. So gets us to the crux of the matter you're getting to, right? So what's a movement area, right? So let me, I see what I have to do. I wanted to zoom in there. There we go, I have it up. This is the tool I was going to use, but it's slower than the computer.
I can do mine if you need, Joe. I got it right here.
You want to try? Why don't you do that? It might be running better. We're going to look at some of the markings from above. Let me see here.
So this is the south side of runway 26 left.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got the, whatever it is, 6 spots in the run-up area. So
Right.
One of the questions was, John asked, so the run-up area for 26 left, do we ask to continue taxi or not?
Yeah, the answer to cut the chase is yes. You need an authorization to leave that run-up area because you're have gone into a non-movement area there, right? And then you're going back into the movement area. Now that's depicted and identified by those particular markings Mike is showing. It's a single dash, a single yellow line, and a single dash line. Notice it's not too different from the runway hold position markings, which are double dash, double solid lines. There you go. So if you move over to like a ramp area, maybe Ross, or if you're near Gulfstream or there, Aeroplex, look at the zipper line. I'm looking where they have a, Carl, you have a movement boundary marking along a ramp somewhere?
Yeah, it's all the way right there. You can see it. It's
okay, there it is. Yeah,
in the board of the deal. So the only difference, there was a question in the question and answers that was like, how come it's not painted like that? That one's a little bit larger because of the size of the aircraft that are in there, and because these guys are pretty small. But it's the same marking. It's just scaled for the smaller taxi.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. My point is simply that it would be more typical to see the movement. Actually, they're called non-movement area boundary markings. which we won't get into the debate about if that's backyard or not. But some people think it is. That's what it's called though. So if you're in the ramp, you're in the non-movement side. And if they get onto the taxiway, you're in the movement side. And air traffic is responsible for movement in the movement area. So again, here, the decision has been made essentially to create the run-up area and then to have the portion of the run-up area, if you look to the, in this case, to the north, be non-movement area. And so basically air traffic essentially is not responsible for moving in there. And of course, these are fairly new run-up area designs. I don't know their origination, to be honest with you, but I have seen more of these being designed and built now. Carl, you would probably know more about that than I, but they are.
Yeah, so within the new design standards,
yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of the new design that all the airports are kind of going to. It's kind of weird, but in the past we just had them running up on an old closed runway, and they were concerned that pilots were next to each other and blowing debris into each other, and so this was the approved design through the FAA's Western Pacific region's office. So Mark Wan was one of the engineers that was on this project.
Great. Now there's nothing that requires it to be in a non-movement area. I don't know per se. I mean, I know that pilots will know this if you go.
So the non-movement area was done because of the amount of traffic that heads down Foxtrot. And they had some issues in the past where some of the pilots would just go out after they were in there and then cross the runway. And if you had a Gulfstream or something taxiing down the runway here, and these guys didn't expect them to come out, the FAA and the design wanted us to have more control over the possibility of somebody getting out of here without guidance and it can conflicting with another plane if, say, a controller got sidetracked by another operation that was going at ground that diverted him from looking at this, and then somebody came out of here and they had a conflict between those two aircraft because the two are on the same movement area. That's why that design was that way.
Right.
Oh, I got it. In talking to the flight schools this week. So if it's clear, we must call before leaving the run-up area. The next question is, if we do call, is that what's to be expected from Tower? So that we should get another clearance to proceed wherever we're heading to after that, whether it be right there at 26 left or, continue taxiing to 30. So is that that's the standard procedure now? If air traffic could comment on that.
Yeah, if that's your question, if that's, what is required or if that's what we expect. Yeah, it's something as simple as, our run-ups complete or we'd like to further taxi. And if we gave you the runway assignment initially, we're just going to tell you continue taxi. But there is cases where we don't intentionally give you a runway assignment if supposedly you're on the north side of runway 26 left. That is because it is a further distance from that run up to the departure point. So we might just give you instructions to that run up, and then when you tell us run up complete, then we'll give you the runway assignment and give you the instructions to get there. And normally it's Delta 4 Delta to get a 26 left, or if you're going to 30 Delta 4, it'd be just Delta 4. But for 26 left, I'd say 95% of the time, we are issuing you a runway assignment, runway 26 left, taxi via Foxtrot, and with the intentions that in the back of our head, okay, they may go in the run up, they may not, but we're watching you. We're checking to see if you're going to go straight to the runway or not. But yeah, once you're done with the run up, you just let us know and we'll tell you continue taxi.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
And if you didn't need a run up, I think it would be wise for the pilot, when you call ground control for your clearance to taxi, you tell them you'd like taxi for takeoff 26 left with information Bravo negative run up. And now there's no question about what your intention is.
Correct.
Is that you coming out of the run up or out of one of the FBOs, Mike, in your 421 negative run up? Was that you?
Oh, that's always me. Yeah. No run. I do my run up while I'm taxiing.
We in the FAA kind of shake our heads. That's another story. I won't even dive into that. But when you see these complex twins, negative runoff, it's like, yeah, of course not. All right, so
Nice. So the next thing here is, let me stop this share and let's officially bring in our air traffic team. We have the air traffic manager is Jermaine Gill, and our NACA rep for the Long Beach Tower Controllers is Joe Rodriguez. So what have you guys got? Let's bring you in officially and spill your coffee here. What do we got?
All right, thank you guys. It's gonna be tough to follow Joe in his introduction there to runway safety. Jermaine Gill, air traffic manager. I've been here since the beginning of the year. I've been in air traffic now coming up on 32 years, being military and contract tower, DOD, FAA. This is my second stint here. I was first here in 2009, 2010 as a supervisor. Now I'm back as the air traffic manager. So I'm glad to be back. I'm from the area, living in the area, so this is my home, away from home. We definitely have seen an increase in our traffic volume. Our traffic is more than it was pre-COVID. The unfortunate thing is that while the traffic has increased, our staffing has decreased. So there may be some times where you may hear on the ATIS that no pattern work or no practice approaches, and that's only due to staffing and trying to keep it safe and prevent some runway incursions and incidents of that sort. Again, thank you guys for all being here. I'll pass it over to Joe, see if he's had anything he wants to add.
How you guys doing? Joe Rodriguez. I'm the NACA union rep for Long Beach. I've been at Long Beach for 6 years now, certified 5. Before that, I was at Torrance Airport for 5 years. And total time air traffic, 15 years. I was in the Navy before FAA, doing air traffic control. Yeah, that's what I got. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Well, that's great, because I think we got a lot of questions and they're waiting for air traffic to jump in. So Mike, you want us to start from the top?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do that. We still have questions both in the Q&A and in the chat on dealing with this run-up area and your clearance to taxi into it and your clearance to then continue after you're done with your run-up over to the runway. So let's have it once and for all for everybody. If you go to the run-up area and you're complete now with your run-up and you're ready to taxi for takeoff, who do you call and what do you say?
Okay, so I do see the issue. There are people that we do notice that do leave that run-up area without calling. But according to the rules, you should be calling to enter the movement area. So like I said, what we do is we visually watch you while you're in that run-up and while you're coming out. We're going to issue instructions to either give way, to pass behind, to be in front of certain, planes that are taxiing on Foxtrot or going Foxtrot Delta if they're, the carriers that you see a lot more now because of the runway construction. So yes, if you talk to somebody who's not in this meeting, tell them to call us and we'll happily get you to the runway safely.
And I would add, based on the stuff that Joe Santoro mentioned a moment ago, if you proceed from the run-up area to the runway for takeoff and you did not call ground and get that clearance to taxi, you have just done a surface incident, and you may possibly be dealing with an investigation at that point. So follow the rules. You got a non-movement area boundary line. Don't cross it until you've got permission. It's really that simple.
Mike, can I just point out one of the answers or responses I think covers it best in terms of just what to do. Well, it was here. Basically, the bottom line is, well, Joe said it. You need to call someone, air traffic, to come out of the run-up area to get, actually, let me say it better, to go on to the movement area. And again, so you need to call someone. Keeping in mind that if you get an instruction to go to the let's say you go to the, how do you say it, Joe? Runway 26 right, taxi via Juliet, something like that.
Okay, what was the scenario? Because Kilo
out
is
of Ross, going to go to the approach end at 26. Not well, yeah, the end of 26, right?
Yeah,
No.
so if you're coming out of Ross, you're going 26 right. You're going to taxi via Delta. Well, we have a, you know, if you're going north on the ramp, or let's use Echo 1, Echo, Delta, Kilo, hold short runway 30. So Ross is to the west. And then we take you out either Echo 1 or Echo. I'm sorry, Echo 1 or Echo 2 to Echo. And you're going to go Delta, Kilo, hold short runway 30. We get you, we coordinate to cross. We tell you cross runway 30 at Kilo. And then the run up is just before Kilo 1.
It's over there. Okay. So I took you to the wrong way, but this works. I meant to go to 26 left, and it would have been a lot easier for you.
Okay, we can do 26 left. That's no problem. So Echo, my instructions out of Ross would be Echo 1 Echo, Juliet to the run up. That's where I'm taking. I'm not giving you runway assignment.
Okay, and my point simply is, and it goes to kind of the answer here, is just if you find yourself in the run-up area, you need an authorization to get out. So if you issue a clearance, just say, and one of the other controllers maybe uses a different technique, taxi to 26 left via all that stuff, Juliet, and you decide you're going to duck into the run-up area because you need to do a run-up, you can do that, right? Am I correct? They can do that?
Yes.
That point. Now at this point, again, the markings say it all. There's a non-movement boundary marking. You know you're in a non-movement area because you can interpret the boundary marking. You know that you need an authorization to go into the movement area because you can interpret the boundary marking. And it's as simple as that in terms of just the bare bones procedure. And if you start flying around and looking at your run-up areas you go into and out of, you'll see different things. If there was no boundary marking there at all, it would be considered movement area, and you could, come out then at your discretion, given that you were issued a clearance to the runway.
Yeah, effectively, it's no different than if you were to proceed into a row of hangars and then turn around and come back out. You've crossed that into that non-movement area, and now if you want to re-enter the movement area, you need a clearance to do that.
And if you want to be really kind of confused, go to Henderson, where they have a huge, nice, big run-up area with the boundary marking going right through it. So actually, half of the run-up area is on the non-movement side and half is in the movement side. So there you do very careful and realize what part of that run-up area you actually went into, because you have a choice, in that case. So it varies, and it's interesting to kind of see the different layouts. They could be movement, it could be non-movement. You need to identify markings and interpret them.
And one quick question I'll answer here. Anonymous asks, what do you call the dash lines between the spot markers? I think he's talking about these single dash lines. These are in the Aeronautical Information Manual. They're on page 2-3-13. The figure number, if you're looking for it online, the figure number is 2-3-12. And these are called yellow hold position markings. So they don't have any kind of control authority, but it's a great place to stop there before you proceed on, because you could be blocking the taxiway. If you cross this line, you could block somebody who is coming out of spot 2, for instance. So hold behind that line, in between these two, basically. And you see these on other taxiways, probably around other spots around the airport. These ones are not good markings. So, okay. Hopefully that answers that question. What else have we got?
we have, and folks, what we're going to try to do is do most of the surface questions first, and then we'll get to your questions about special flight rules area, flight following, stuff like that.
John's got an interesting idea. What about just posting a sign in the run-up area here, either side, to call ground control for further clearance or something like that?
I think that's something we could bring up at the RSAT as a suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's got some merit.
Question to again, Joe, is there a preference, is it per controller as to whether you would want the aircraft to come out of the run-up via ground control or local control? Does it depend?
Definitely ground.
Okay, that's a helpful answer, because sometimes at some airports it depends, and then usually ground control would have to tell you, right? Okay, holding the run-up, contact tower to continue. Santa Rosa is an example of that. They want you to call from tower, they give you an instruction to the run-up, you do your run-up, call the tower when you're ready. And that has to do with just the way the taxiways lay out, and then the runway, departure points lay out. Their control is better than ground control. So what you said, Joe, just to reiterate, and this would be good to bring up, maybe it's something that can be done as a reminder, contact ground and frequency, whatever it is.
They do that at Fullerton too. The runway 24 on the south side run-up area is in the non-movement area. So you need a clearance to continue taxiing to the run-up. So our technique basically is the same as at Orange County as well. Run-up complete, ready to continue. And then ground control will say, okay, taxi runway 26 left via Foxtrot 1 or something. Okay.
We can make a diagram. We can work with the tower manager and work on a diagram that we can get out to the tenants and put on our website, and then get out to Nate for fast blast or something. And if we need to get more coordination with pilots out there, that's something we could do from the airport.
And Joe and Jermaine, so when you guys are giving clearances to taxi to the run-up, refresh my memory, are you just saying, you're taxi 26 left and then you're just watching to see if they go in the run-up or not?
Not on the north side, but on the south side.
Yeah, on the south side.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So when pilots call up, would you want them to tell you if they're going to do a run-up or not, or most asking for it, or they're just?
Most are asking for the run-up.
Okay.
Yeah, a good amount asked for the run-up.
Got it. Yeah, because any best practices, if so, I mean, it'd be encouraged to have them tell you air traffic. It's like requested run up for 26 left, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, most do tell us. I just wanted to add, something real quick. That run-up area is new to Long Beach, and when I say new, it's probably about 2-3 years old. It was never like that. There was never any hold bars ever. They would enter a pavement and then they would taxi themselves out.
Got it. Okay.
And I'll just real quickly answer Bob's question. He says there is no non-movement area boundary line at the south end of the north run-up area, north of Juliet. Well, there it is right there. So that one does exist.
And again, several people have asked in the Q&A and stuff about the line, saying, well, that's not a non-movement line. It is. It's not the same size as the bigger line for the bigger aircraft, but it's still the correct line.
Yep. Okay, we got a bunch of airborne questions here, it looks like. Do we need a specific clearance to the run-up? I think we've answered that one. Let's see, what else you want to tackle?
How about for Carl? Have the $25 million improvements been completed, including taxiway Lima? And is there any closures?
Yeah, so we're still on nightly closures of runway 30 overnight. That goes from Sunday night into Friday night. We're still got Lima. That's the $25 million project. Lima is still going. We're going to be going until summertime, maybe July, August. We're hoping to get that thing wrapped up maybe a little bit sooner, but And then the shortening of the runway goes for another 30 days. Hopefully they can get it done sooner, but that's because they're laying pavement at Lima 1, Lima 2.
Okay.
And Carl, maybe this is a question for you. I thought there were no touch and go or practice low approaches allowed at Long Beach. Is that true?
That's not true. It's that's for the main runway, runway 30. And then we have limited hours on the touch and goes on the other runways for noise abatement. So the tower has that info. It's posted on the longbeach.org, lgb.org website that has the hours. I think it's, I don't have it on me right here, but it's like 3 o'clock on the weekends. And what is it, 6 o'clock, Joe? Or
So on the weekdays, it's after 7 p.m. So we allow it 7 to 7. And then on the weekends, we end touch and goes at 3 p.m.
Great.
And I believe that even starts an hour later. So I believe it's 8 to 3.
And is that published somewhere?
It is.
that is. So it's in the facilities directory, which is now the chart supplement. So it's posted in that as well.
I see it in the remarks box in ForeFlight.
And then we found an error. There was somebody got something published that went outside of from our FAA normal guy that does it. And so we've the tower manager spotted it. So there was a Zulu time error on one of them, but that's supposed to be in the next, or if it's not in this one, it's supposed to be in the next chart supplement according to our FAA inspector.
All right. I think we got a pretty easy one here for Joe and Jermaine. Does the same controller control all runways?
Depends on the time of the day, but not all the time. So let's say 7 in the morning. Yes, we'll work runway 26 left, runway 26 right, and 30 if we are west traffic, and we'll be on 119.4. But as the complexity and traffic increase, then we will use a second local controller and we'll split our duties. And so runway 26 left and runway 30 arrivals will be on 119.4, and runway 26 right and the 30 departures and all the helipads in between the runways will be on 120.5. And that will be on the ATIS. We will let you know, what tower frequency to be on, or if you're inbound and for some reason we can't take you on a certain runway, we'll hand you off to the next controller that can get you into one of the runways.
Okay. Thanks for that. Let's see. Carl, we had a question about noise, but they're asking about if there's a noise organization still active and if there's current restrictions. So I'm not familiar. Well, there's a Long Beach noise abatement, but if you want to just talk about a little quick overview of noise and the limitations.
So yeah, there's noise abatement still at Long Beach. It goes 24 hours a day. For the main runway, it drops to 79 decibels between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. And then from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., it gets to 90. And then after that, it's 101.5 and 102.5 for the arrival and departure of runway 30. And then back again at 10 o'clock at night, it shifts back down to 90. The 26 left and 26 right have their own noise abatement 24 hours a day too. 26 right is more restrictive than the 26 left. So you got to be really cautious there. I don't know why they ever did what they did, but within the noise ordinance, it has some pretty low numbers over there. They're all available on the lgb.org. You can look up how much the noise monitors are for both the runways. There you go. Perfect. And the one thing too is to take advantage of that noise testing. If you've got a plane that's loud and you want to check a flap setting, or you want to see if something, if it allows you to come in on runway 30 late at night, if you want to try to figure out something in a little more complex airplane, or if you want to just try to figure out about 26 right departure with maybe a little bit louder plane, and they can run noise calculations and get them back to you. We have several operators we've worked with to try to assist them in getting in at different hours.
Okay, great.
While we're talking about websites with information about flying around the area, this will be my chance to plug the Southern California Airspace Users Working Group, scog.org, and I'll post the link in the chat here to everybody. This is a great resource for all sorts of information, not just on SoCal, but now we're expanding with information in Arizona, Phoenix, and Tucson, and San Diego. If you have questions about how to get in or out of an airport or through the airspace from one airport to another, there's a tremendous amount of really good information on that website. So I would encourage you to take a look around.
And Mike, while we're looking at this picture of United in their old paint scheme,
San Francisco.
Since we're posting websites, do you want to post the link to from the flight deck video for Long Beach? And
here's the FAA's runway safety page. And let me post that in here as well. This one came up last night. You can go ahead and click on that link. For instance, here's a runway safety team video on operating at Van Nuys. There's a lot of airports already presented here with videos that are shot in airplanes in the area, with great advice on how to get in and out of all these airports. That's actually a great time. Let's go ahead and post that next poll, Nate.
Okay. Will do.
Joe Santoro had asked us to post this poll about if you were familiar with some of these runway safety resources. Have you ever been to this website? Have you used this runway safety pilot simulator or any of the from the flight deck videos? So this is a fairly new feature coming out from the runway safety team. A lot of really good information in there.
All right, while we're waiting for that, one of the questions for Joe and Jermaine, can the tower provide some tips to pilots on what we can do to help with airport efficiency? So is there anything you guys are seeing from your end that's like, man, I wish these guys would do this, or anything that comes to the top of mind?
I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but there's times.
Of course you do. You're a controller.
You're a controller. That's your job.
You're a controller. Okay.
I'm talking about business side, and what I mean by that is it feels like everybody comes out at the same time. So that means everybody's coming in at the same time. And so even if you spaced your flights by 5 minutes, it would just help out, departures and arrivals. We have people extending past the 605 at times because we have 6 on the pattern, 7 in the pattern, and we do have, Southwest inbound and Hawaiian departing, so if there was that small little separation of departure time, things like that would help. But again, I
think that's good feedback, Joe, because like most of the flight schools, they'll schedule a lesson 12 to 2, 2 to 4, so everybody's doing the rush. So that's some feedback. Hopefully some of the flight school owners and students are on this, but that's something I can also relay to them.
When I was instructing full time, I was the renegade. I did 9 to 11 and 11 to 1 instead. So.
All right, so
little things like that. That's probably our what we're seeing the most recently is just when they call, they're coming out in bunches, and then they're arriving at the same time, and then they're coming from other airports, so we have our itinerants, and then we have them coming from John Wayne or Torrance or Chino. They come from all over.
I did 3 sequential approaches into Torrance a week or so ago with a student, and the first one we got in and there was nobody in the sky. The second one we had a near midair collision as we're intercepting the final. Airplanes everywhere, all over, cumulo-aluminum, all quadrants. And then the third one we came back around and there was nobody. We were the only one. It's just amazing how it comes and goes and fits and starts like that.
Yes.
All right. So Mike, do I have to hit stop sharing for that poll, that last one? Or did you get the results?
I published it, and
Okay.
we looked at them a little bit there. It looks like, well, about half have not seen it. A handful are saying, "What's that?" They completely weren't familiar. So, Joe Santoro, why don't you explain what this is just a little bit, in case I didn't do a good enough job there, which is likely.
Well, you did a good job. Can you just use your screen? So if you scroll down, can you find the top? Oh, are you in Van Nuys page? Let's see.
Yeah, probably.
Just refresh it and go back to the main page. There you go.
So yeah, here's the main page. You get a map here. You can zoom in and see here's the airports.
Right.
Available now or coming soon.
Mm-hmm. And if you click above, there you go. You can click there. There's another menu up to the top left header behind that window that just popped open.
And so I got to get rid of that, huh?
I think there you go. Click right there.
Ah.
It should open. So now you can see there's over 100, well, definitely more than 100 that are all there. I think there's in the 70s that are completed. So the green are completed. If you go to any of those Long Beach, so then you go to Long Beach's page. If you go there, you will go to Long Beach's own page, which is where we have ideas and hopes to be able to add more airport specific stuff on this page. Maybe data, maybe other resources that you would tie into and things. And keeping in mind that all of this is non-regulatory, right? So it's just to help you plan primarily. We do want you to go there. That's an example of a type of thing that we could put on there. That's kind of just gee whiz informational, but there could be other ideas. There's a link if there's an airport construction notice, and I think there ought to be one for Long Beach with the construction going on. If not, we can definitely get them done. You would go to that site, and there would be a construction notice just for this airport with a visual graphic, which is very helpful. Obviously, you still have to read the notice because those are official, but this gives you a little picture to start out. And
there was a great question asked last night at the Van Nuys Pilot Controller Forum, and it was posed as, if I was coming into the airport, what was the one thing that I could do to better prepare for this arrival? And I would submit that visiting this page is probably that one thing. Go see if there's a page for the airport you're going to.
That's exactly what we like folks to do. Exactly. That's exactly the point. You may find some, you may not. But one other thing I want to really point out, there is a series of non-specific videos. We call them single topic videos. And I'm going to highlight a couple of them for you. Just scroll down. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you see the other videos. So those are single topics. Arrival alert notice and standardized hotspots. We want you to definitely go in there and watch those. Those are initiatives that we are hitting the chart, published charts in the May 19th cycle. Hotspots standardized graphically so that you will see certain shapes for surface-based hotspots. You will see certain particular shape or wrong surface alignment, wrong runway alignment issues. Also, there's going to be an arrival alert notice starting out only at 11 airports, but hopefully they will grow, which is just basically a snapshot of the final approach of 2 runways where there's confusion. And you can go to Google and do that pretty much, or there may be other products that do that. I think, Mike, you were talking about some products that do that if you're subscribed at like the premium level, where you can, it's part of that actually, but we're just giving you a snapshot for free, basically.
Yeah, there's some great features in ForeFlight at the Performance Plus level subscription that have some 3D views available of the airport and various approaches to various runways, and it's a pretty nice feature.
Hey, Mike, I got a question for you. In ForeFlight, do they list a link to this by any chance in airport info?
Yeah, here, let me.
But they'll do a link to that actual page, like the LGB info page.
No, not that page, not from the FAA runway safety.
But do you think, and for everybody that's on, yeah, Mike actually does live events and training events for ForeFlight, so he is a guru when it comes to this. But I was just thinking, I don't know if it'd be a good idea if could somehow ask ForeFlight with all the other stuff they put in there. It's like, hey, for the airports that have it, could we put that link in there? Is that a good idea or bad? What do you think?
It was really slow coming up, but here I'm looking at the Long Beach Airport page, and in the upper right corner here is this 3D view button, and you can click. Oh, I need to get rid of this other box so you can see it better. And let me get rid of that box so I can see it better. So the ForeFlight page looks like this, and at the Performance Plus level subscription, you have 3D view here. And this is a north-looking view at the airport. You can take a look at what the approach looks like if you're on 3-0. Well, let's say in this example, on a 3-degree glide path, this is what it's going to look like. And you can zoom in on that a little bit. You can pan it around. And if you have it selected and turned on, these are actual airplanes that are in the air right now flying by this airport. And if you wanted to look at another runway, you tap on, say, 8 left. And here's what it looks like as you're on approach to runway 8 left. So it's sort of a focused version of Google Earth for this airport.
Got it. What I was saying was that Long Beach link. Do you think ForeFlight would be interested in putting that in the info section somewhere?
You know, I've asked them about. I would love to have a link for pilot associations at this airport, for Fullerton Airport. Our Fullerton Airport Pilot Association would love to have a link in here. And when I asked them about that, they said basically how much money you got.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
They wanted to charge money for it, so I don't hold your breath.
So moving on, let's see, for air traffic. Somebody asked the question, why does clearance delivery ask for pertinent information, aircraft type, destination route, et cetera? But when you switch to SoCal, sometimes they might not know who you are and your route, et cetera, and where you're going.
You're talking about for flight following?
That's what, I mean, this is just what the question asked. I would think go.
I know the answer. I know the answer. Yeah, okay, so when we get the information that we require, it is to put into our database, our FDIO, which is flight data input output. And what that does is it puts out in the NAS, you know, this specific aircraft is going from point A to point B. And the technology is old, and so it doesn't translate to the new technology that SCT has when they don't use a strip. Something prints out, so they don't use the print up. They're stripless is what they call it. And so they have to ask. They have to ask, say, destination, say requested altitude, things of that nature. We are in negotiations to get that changed. We should have it, I don't want to say real soon. Jermaine might know the answer when, but it's happening. The changes are happening where they won't have to ask that questions anymore.
Okay, thanks for that. And then we had another question. I'm not quite sure what they're asking, but it says, can ATC explain their chunking phraseology practice?
So the only reason why I would chunk my phraseology is because the thing I have to get, you know, I have to tell you is too wordy, it's too long. And so I rather just give it to you in a short burst, or the pilot is not, in my opinion, at that level where I can give them everything and then they'll repeat it back to me the way I need to hear it. So I'm going to give you bits and pieces. And then when I get what I need, I'll give you the rest. That's my version of chunking, and everybody else is that.
You know, and speaking kind of along those lines, I mean, I also work at the Flight Standards District Office. So what I like to tell everybody, public service announcement, if in doubt, if you have any question on the ground, stop and ask. You know, if you don't know where you are, stop and ask. If you're not quite sure if you're supposed to cross that yellow line, stop and ask. Was I cleared for takeoff? Stop and ask. Most deviations on the surface, I feel would have been prevented had people just stop and ask. Also in the air, we'll get into the air, but most pilot deviations would have been, when I talk to SoCal and stuff like that, if you're on flight following, you're going to help eliminate a bunch of the pilot deviations. So, okay, back to the questions. On understaffed days, when ADA says no practice approaches, can a pilot still request the ILS 30 with SoCal if it's ending to a full stop?
Yes. If it's
Now, even on a even in VFR practice, it's a practice approach to a full stop. Is that okay?
Full stop
Okay.
will allow. Yeah, it's the turning before the airport, or changing, circling to another runway to get a touch and go and then go back to SoCal. Yeah, it's just, we don't have the staffing and the oversight. So we prefer a full stop.
Okay, great. And they also wanted to thank everyone at the tower. It's been busy and you guys have been amazing. And we've had several comments of this saying how professional everyone in the tower has been. So that's awesome. Okay, next question. Why are formation takeoffs and landings not allowed? Or I don't know if they are or not. So are they allowed? And if not, why not?
It's part of the rules.
Not allowed, but Carl can answer.
So it's actually in the noise ordinance about formation takeoffs and formation landings. And I don't know if it was a safety issue or a noise issue that arrived from it. Some military are still exempt from that, depending on their operation, but generally GA, you can't ask to go off for the rules and regulations of the noise abatement, the actual noise ordinance at the Long Beach Airport.
Okay, so it's a noise thing. And I'm just messing with you, Carl. Carl's a great guy, but so the B-1 bomber can take off, but two 172s can't take off in formation. I know you agree.
Their props get in alignment and make that really bad, whine. So
yeah, when they're next to each other,
that's
it's
right.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you have out of balance engines, right?
Right. Okay.
Of course, the difference is when two B1s do it, all the pilots are by the side of the runway going, "Yeah, let's go!" And when two 172s are doing it, everybody's going,
"Hurry up!
What?
Come on, really?
Get out of my way!"
The whole show for two 172s. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Dana asks about these links. Presumably, the safety video links, are they going to be in the chart supplement somewhere? And I know this just came up in the Van Nuys RSAT today. I think there's going to be a move to put more of this kind of information with links in the chart supplement. But it's a process. It takes time to roll it out.
Mike, just to say yes, we have seen success by one or two airports, but if it happens, it will have to roll out somehow. I think there's some talk about it, though.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay,
so we should include that in the RSAT as a action going forward.
So a comment, I always want to just ask for progressive instructions on the taxiway to either runway or transient from ATC, especially at an unfamiliar airport if I'm unsure, so that everyone or every move I make is made with the controller's blessing. Is that okay as well at Long Beach? I think we know the answer to that, but I'll let the controllers answer that one.
Progressive taxi is always welcome. You can ask for it and we will give it to you.
Okay, appreciate that.
Can I suggest Nate, one other thing that's related to that? In the pilot sim that Mike was showing, there's a video called, it's an animation called Unable. Air traffic wants pilots to know you can say unable, and you should. So going along with progressives, don't hesitate to say unable. And Joe, I won't speak for you, so speak for yourself. What happens when they say a pilot says unable, regardless their experience level?
Yeah, if a pilot's going to tell me unable, then I'm going to change my instructions. I'll help them in any way. We want everybody to be safe.
Thanks.
All right. And everyone, if you got more surface related questions, please put it in the Q&A, or if you have any other suggestions or comments. Don't think if we didn't bring it up that we're not noting it, and all of the notes are saved, and Joe and the other runway safety team members are reviewing this information that will be held at this meeting on Monday to review. So I'm not going to dive back into the T6 left run up, but there's been several comments on that. All of those have been noted, and that will be discussed in great detail, and we appreciate the feedback. So I think we got through all the surface questions so far, Mike. So let's dive into some airborne stuff. Oh, you got something, Joe?
Yeah, I do have. There's one item not runway run-up area related that I did see. I would like to answer.
Go.
What is the green paint on the surface mean? That's a really great question. Basically, it's no taxi. It's like as though there was grass there. That's why it's green. So don't taxi through it. There you go. And if you go over to, it was talked about earlier over by Ross Aviation, Echo and Juliet, where they go around the corner of Ross. Yeah, you see some green. We have the green pavement in there. Well, that's during construction, I think. Go further south by Juliet. Here we go. Is that what it looks like right now? I don't think so.
No, it goes all the way across.
Yeah, that's old. So the green paint now goes all the way across the area, and there's stripes on the ground with like the double yellow lines that you're not supposed to cross, and it heads all the way across that intersection that used to be Bravo. So basically, that ramp of Ross is no longer connected to that section at Juliet 4. However, once in a while, you'll see the tower will allow for tugs around the corner because they've got to get these Gulfstream jets back and forth and around. And instead of going all the way down Juliet and up Echo and getting in the way and blocking airplanes that are moving around, they have approval to go through with the tug operations, but that's on tower's discretion and when they want to allow it. But all the pilots that are flying, you need to go around and get to Echo 1 and come around to Juliet if you wanted to get back across that way. So if you look here, you'll see the Echo 1 exit. So you actually have to move away from it. So in the chart here, you'll see it's not connected, that ramp. It's got like a little diagonal. Once in a while, Ross will send a plane in and have them taxi onto their ramp, something large like the 737s or whatever, but they're functionally going up Juliet 4 and then into their ramp. So it's not going into the movement area, it's just onto their ramp. So it was, the other option would have been we remove all the pavement, which would make it super hard on Ross to get rid of that hot spot. And this was kind of an intermediate deal. And then also at night, there's taxiway markers that are surface mounted, so they're flush. But when you're cruising around at night, they look like they're just as high. They give you this optical illusion, so you can see it's like solid when you're taxiing by at night. You'll see lights that are in the way that you shouldn't taxi through. But so far, it's been pretty good. I think most pilots understand that not to roll over green. That green is, like Joe said earlier, that's grass. And it's a way for us not to remove it to become more gopher areas, and it's kind of a better way for us.
Yeah, and you'll note that the green areas are on the far side of a double solid taxi line. That's a taxiway edge marking with an unusable surface on the far side. So there's two clues not to be taxiing there. And the other point I'll make about this is Google is a great tool with the maps and the satellite pictures, but sometimes they're old, as we're finding out here tonight.
All right. Ready for more questions?
Bring it.
I think so. Joe, were you good? Joe, okay. All right. Perfect. So lately, we've been unable to get flight following when departing with the intention of climbing to the Hollywood Park route. This didn't used to be problematic, and when queried, controllers claim it's not by choice. Some letter of agreement fell apart. What can be done to get this back working seamlessly?
Okay, so the letter agreement, it didn't fall apart, it expired. We used to have the ability to have a flight following instructions to go westbound, but it was temporary. And so it did not get renewed because, how I mentioned earlier, with our equipment being a little bit outdated, we did get some new equipment, but we have to make letter of agreements to be able to use our equipment in a way that SoCal Approach wants us to use it, you know, putting in certain information. So again, I don't know the exact date when that will go into effect. Jermaine might know better than I do, but we're hoping to get it soon, where we will allow, we will be able to do flight following westbound. They won't just have to go northeast to the 91605 or make that left crossing over the LA River. So it is coming, but that LOA did expire.
You know, and something I want to touch on that, you know, Joe and Jermaine, but I mean, for all the attendees on here, I don't know if most people are aware, and you guys can speak of this if you want, but the shortage of staff for controllers across the nation has been pretty bad, you know, all across. I mean, most of the controllers, I don't know what the current state is right now, but I mean, for a long time, you know, I heard that, you know, the controllers were having to work double overtime. And I mean, it was just, there were not enough people to staff most of the facilities across the country, from SoCal to towers all over. So I know we appreciate all the work you guys do to, you know, keep everything moving. You know, but I think more of the public need to understand that. It's like, hey, you know, we're offering on, you know, thin measures. Well, I shouldn't say thin. I mean, nothing's being sacrificed, but you guys are really putting in the work, so we appreciate it. So when things like this come up, it's in the works. It'll happen, hopefully, but there's other, you know, issues like in our line of work that probably have to come up. So appreciate everything, guys. Let's see, when transitioning from Fullerton to enter the LA special flight rules northbound, would you prefer we call you for the transition or simply climb over your airspace and proceed?
Okay, depends on the altitude. So from Fullerton, you're probably not that high. So yeah, I would appreciate a call. And as long as you're along that 91. The conflict comes in when we have our air carriers or any jet departing runway 30. And you know, you have a transition that is in the altitude of 3,000 or below, or 3,500 and below. You know, so if you're going Fullerton and you're gonna be above our airspace, you know, at near 3,000 feet, yeah, I would appreciate a call.
What do you guys think? I know we got the Fullerton Pilot Pro here, Mike Jesh. Is it too quick of a flight to coordinate with flight following on the ground at Fullerton, heading that way? Because then everybody knows what's going on.
Well, first of all, my advice is don't use the special flight rules area. But if I was going to do the special flight rules area, yeah, I'd call and get a SoCal Tracon coverage off the ground out of Fullerton and just tell them I'm going northbound Camarillo, whatever, via the special flight rules area, and they'll get you all tagged up and get you on your way.
Okay.
Yeah, because then SCT is going to point them out to us. Then we don't need to talk to them, and we'll know about them.
We're saving time on the frequency. You know, especially,
exactly.
You know, it's definitely more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. When we discuss, can ATC explain the pattern entry points for Long Beach?
So, okay. I mean, 85% of the time we're on west traffic. So the entry points we're going to give you is either if you're on the east, we're going to give you a straight in or a base entry. And it's rare it's going to be a left base because we have the final, you know, the ILS final for 30. So most of the time it'll be a right base. If you happen to be on the south side, we're going to ask to make left traffic. So our expectation is that you're going to somehow inbound on a 45 to enter the downwind. You know, so if that means you have to go to the Queen Mary to do that, then you have to go to the Queen Mary. You know, because sometimes you get people that want to go straight north to Signal Hill, you know, if they're south, like around Queen's Gate. But if we're told to make left traffic, we're expecting a 45-degree entry to the downwind, or we might tell you enter midfield downwind. But those are our entry points. We're telling you enter the downwind, enter a base, make straight in. Yeah, and the same for 26 right. So if you're coming out of special flight rules, I might tell you enter direct downwind runway 26 right. Or I might even send you to the 71091, and that's to get you out of the way for our runway 30 departures, because they normally turn south or west prior to even being a conflict with anybody at that point at the 91605. I'm not 605, I'm sorry, 91710.
Okay.
Or if you're north, I'm telling you, enter right base over the 605 for runway 26 right or 26 left. And then if you're requesting 30, it all depends on my saturation. If I have so we have on our radar screen, it tells us who's arriving. And if I see I have, multiple carriers and other jets inbound, I might tell you to contact SoCal to sequence you if you want runway 30. If there's no traffic, then I will give you a entry to runway 30 via the base or straight in.
So I got a question that kind of goes along those same lines. A lot of times I'm getting flight following coming into Long Beach, trying for 26 right, and they'll say contact tower on 120.5. But it's opposite of what the ATIS has said, or 119.4. And it's like,
yes,
I know what frequency most likely you're on, but SoCal told me. So any suggestions there? I mean, like the ATIS says contact whatever, 20.5.
The ATIS is 95% correct.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, because we might have just split it and told SoCal, hey, everybody for the right, it's going to be 20.5, and we haven't had time to cut the ATIS.
Okay, I like that answer.
Or we're in the middle of cutting the ATIS. So
okay.
So yeah,
the ATIS is correct except when it's not.
Yeah,
but if we're splitting the local tower frequencies, that's our first priority is to cut a new ATIS. It's not something we put off. Like as soon as we're opening up the other frequency, we're turning off the ATIS. That is our like I said, our priority. Turn off the ATIS, start letting everybody know, contact the other tower on this frequency if that's where you're going, because we're trying to relieve pressure from that one frequency, because they're becoming busier, so we're trying to relieve the pressure. So
okay. And then somebody asked, talking about the ATIS, what does advised departure point mean in the ATIS? Departing runway requesting and current parking point. Some of that seems pretty obvious, but
so yeah, sometimes our ATIS can get wordy. So advised departure point, for example, if you're at Ross, instead of guessing which runway you want, like 26 right, 26 left, 30 Delta 4, or if you need, our current full length with this 30 Delta 2, if you could just tell us, instead of what we call cold calls, where someone just calls and gives us their call sign, hey, Long Beach Tower, November 123, and then we got to reach out to them. Tell us, where you're parked, that you have the ATIS code, and your departure point. If you want flight following, then you can give us all that other stuff too. We're pretty good at, once you tell us you want something like flight following, give us all that information. If we miss something, we'll ask. If we don't, we'll tell you stand by and we'll get it for you.
So why is it about 95% of the time I'll say, Cessna so-and-so, I'm at Ross, taxi for takeoff with Juliet. And the very first thing the ground controller says is, advise you have information, Juliet. Is it just me, or does this happen to everybody else too?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
It's kind of tongue in cheek. I know it's a lot of information all at once.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes you don't hear the first thing, because we're doing other things. We're coordinating with each other. We're coordinating with other sectors where our attention is, making sure something is going to work the way we think it is, or maybe we have to fix it. So then someone chimes in our ear and you're saying your call sign, we have ATIS Juliet, we want this, and this. We might have missed one thing, and it most of the time it's the ATIS.
Yeah, and as a technique, I have changed my technique just a little bit, where I put the ATIS code at the very end of my transmission. The thinking being that you remember that best which you heard last.
Yeah,
So I think my ratio has gone up
last.
from 90 down from 90% to maybe 50% of the time it gets missed, but it still gets missed a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, Joe, you talking about that, you know, I've handled a lot of pilot deviation. So what's great is I hear all the communications from the controller. And, you know, for our guests here tonight, I mean, Joe is spot on. You know, you're only hearing one side of it, but he might be controlling or coordinating with SoCal. There could be an issue coming up and he's controlling or talking to another sector, talking to the supervisor, talking to another controller. You know, we don't really understand that, you know, it's like a party line in there. There's all these conversations going on, but we only hear one line. So, okay. Does ATC prefer inside or outside Signal Hill?
So
I guess let's just talk on both. Like, I guess
okay.
Pattern.
Okay, so what I north of Signal Hill is the Pattern. One thing we do see a lot, well, yeah, I say a lot, is people or aircraft following the 405. The problem with following the 405 is you start to drift a little bit south into the ILS for runway 30. So if you're north of Signal Hill and you parallel the runway, you know, about a 080 heading 070 to bring you slightly north, you know, you shouldn't have any problems. But yeah, they get, you know, a lot of aircraft get lulled into following that 405 because it's right south of us. You know, it is in the downwind right below us, you know, but it starts to, you know, like I said, take you a little bit southeast.
Now, would you recommend the same if we're coming in from Queen Mary? Stay inside, you know, Signal Hill? I mean, you're going to fly over it, but.
Right. So, you know, when you fly over Signal Hill and you're north of it, you can start getting into your downwind.
Okay.
And the one thing I would point out on that is good job. The traffic pattern is a ground reference maneuver. Just make sure you reference the right ground when you do it, and you reference the runway and not some other road. I see the same thing out of Fullerton a lot of the time. People will take off on runway 24 and they end up paralleling the streets on the ground. You're supposed to be flying the extended center line of the runway. So reference the right thing.
I'm waiting for somebody to put in the chat, I fly roads or something, or I follow roads, but I'm going to just beat you to the cheesy punch right now. Okay.
Thanks for hitting that one off at the pass.
Joe, I got a question. Since we're kind of talking about the pattern, I've often wondered if you're in the pattern for T6 left, hypothetical, right? And you're on the downwind leg and a jet or an air carrier aircraft or something has to go around on 30. You know, I see a potential problem, but I mean, like, you're calling the traffic already to, you know, the person landing about the traffic. But I mean, do you guys have a procedure in place for that, or it's like
you always protect for the go around? Yeah, we're very proactive with issuing that traffic. You know, and it does happen where they fly over them at 500 feet. You know. But like I said, we're always issuing that traffic, hoping that, you know, there's nothing unstable to where that does happen, you know, and then we're in a spot where we can't get out of. But it's worked so far, you know what I mean, and we've done it for a long time. So,
all right, and then how has it been working out with, you know, the change that happened for the pattern a few years ago with, you know, have to maintain at least 1,000 feet till passing the center line? Are people following that, you know, pretty good, or?
For the most part, yes. Yeah, we do see, you know, they go past runway 30 and then they you know, then they begin to descend. It's funny you mentioned that, because I'd say maybe about 2 years ago, we had seen a trend where they were dipping below that. If we were to clear them before they passed runway 30, you know, that approach area, we would see them kind of dip down, and, you know, we'd correct them, and it just seemed like it went away. I haven't had that problem, at least while I've been working.
Okay, great. right, so another question, when coming into Long Beach from the east over Seal Beach, do I have to do a step approach or can I descend into Seal Beach? I mean, I don't.
Oh, I get what they're saying. Okay. So that all depends if they're opened or closed, or if they are, you know, in communication with SET or Seal Beach at any point of that. But if a lot of times we don't know that answer. Let's say they just check on in their VFR flight, and I give them an instructions, make straight in, runway 26 left or 26 right. I'm gonna point out to LOSAL, to Seal Beach. I'm gonna point out, you know, hey, you know, point out this aircraft, he's descending for Long Beach straight in. And so they'll be able to avoid any of their aircraft with the one that I'm in communication with.
Okay, great.
And if I need, I'm gonna tell them maintain at or above a certain altitude. I want to say, yeah. So LOSAL is 25. They're the top of their altitude, 2,500. So
okay, another a great question came in that's always on the top of a lot of people's mind. If the extended downwind on 26 left and you get extended while it's very busy, is there an LOA with Seal Beach if the tower doesn't get back by the time you're crossing the 605, or what are we expected to do? Turn base or just continue at traffic pattern altitude? Great question.
Okay, so if I'm extending your downwind, I don't want you to turn base unless I tell you. If you are passing the 605 and you know we're busy and you haven't heard anything, please let us know you're passing the 605. That's a great reminder because you'll get instructions right away. You'll get instructions as continue downwind, because that means we've coordinated with LOSAL for you to, you know, go into their airspace, and you're only expected from me, maybe I only need you to go another half mile to maybe a mile at the most, not even a mile most of the time. And then you know, I'll give you your base. You know, or if I sequence you to follow somebody who has went past the 605 and you need to maintain to go past the 605 to keep that sequence, that has also been coordinated already.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, but to answer the more, you know, scarier question, if you're in the downwind and you're passing the 605 and you haven't heard anything, please advise us. Please say, hey, I'm passing the 605. You know, and then you'll be our priority.
All right, thanks for that. Well, we still have almost 91 people on here, so if you guys got the questions, keep them coming in.
One thing I'll point out, further to the comment I made earlier, the question last night about one thing to do if you're preparing to go into an airport you're not familiar with. Take a minute when you're on the ground in the comfort of your home, in your office or whatever, before you take off, preferably, and take a look at that airport diagram and try to get an idea of the lay of the land, where you're going, and maybe even annotate your diagram. And I'll do this much better in ForeFlight, but on here, if I'm taxiing to Ross, for instance, I will put a big splotch on my taxi diagram right there, and maybe with a green pen, that's my destination. Maybe I'm going to contemplate what my taxi clearance is probably going to be. If I'm going to do the ILS onto 30 and I'm going to go there, maybe I'll probably exit at Delta 4, maybe I'll exit at Golf. So I can expect that my taxi route will probably be something like that, or actually something like this. And if I get off at Charlie, maybe I'll taxi something like this. So I'm anticipating, I've looked at this and figured out, and also a quick, by the way, if you're using ForeFlight and you're connected to internet, if there are any NOTAMs about taxiway closures or anything of that nature, you'll get a big note on your taxi diagram that there are NOTAMs that apply. So if I see a closed taxiway, let's say that the ATA says that taxiway Delta 4 is closed. I put a big X right here in red. That means I can't use that taxiway. So I've done this before I take off. And then when I taxi clear the runway and I stop the aircraft after I've crossed the hold short bars, every part of the aircraft is clear. I stop the airplane, I clean it up, I put the flaps up, I turn my strobes off, I do whatever my after landing checklist is. Then I call ground control and I get my taxi clearance. and they'll say, okay, you're cleared to taxi to Ross via Charlie, Delta, Echo, Echo 2. And I mark that in green. So now I've got this, and I do this while I'm stopped and I'm out of the way of everybody. And this will help, or may help you avoid a surface incident by going the wrong direction or getting beak to beak with another airplane and getting stuck.
Agreed. Jermaine and Joe, is there anything, you see more often than not on the ground, that's like, hey, we see people doing this all the time, or, any phraseology or something, or is there anything like, well, any other tips? We have a couple more questions coming in, but just seeing if you guys have anything in general like that. If not, no big deal. I'll keep diving into the questions.
Nothing that comes to mind. The thing that we bring up most of the time on a daily basis is just verifying the ATIS and the runway assignment. It's easy to say 26, and then we have to verify 26 left or 26 right, or, we have multiple departure points on 30. We got, when the construction is done, we'll have, the full length, we'll have 30 Delta 2, Delta 3, Delta 4, and then on the other side, Lima 2, Lima 3, Lima 4, So yeah, just reading back the runway assignment and the ATIS, I think is one of the things we constantly on a daily basis have to correct pilots, verify this runway assignment, verify you have ATIS, so and so. But taxi routes, everybody's like we had talked about early in the chunking. If I feel like somebody is not gonna get the full grasp of the route I want them, I'm gonna chunk and give it to you in pieces.
Got it.
I didn't realize that was a technical term.
Me either.
But I get it.
Chunking?
Yeah, chunking.
Yeah, it makes sense. And if they think you can handle it, if your communications are good and you're on your game, might try to feed you more information. But if you're stumbling on every little thing and asking for a readback, they'll give you smaller bites, just like you would with a kid. They can't handle a full mouthful of food, but a small spoonful is very doable.
Yeah, and also we recognize our itinerant, and we know when somebody is not from our airport.
I'm going to try to pose this next question. It's been there for a while from Werner. He's asking about Part 107 or UAS type vehicles. And I don't know exactly what LAANC is, but maybe Carl can jump in. Is there any guidance on any of the Long Beach websites about operating a drone in the area? Who do you contact? What are the rules?
Yeah, on the website there's a deal that says to contact the tower manager if you want to get into the airspace that's near the tower. If you go on to the LANC maps, there's some UAS facility maps that'll show pretty much zero altitude all around the airport up till about 1.5 to 2 mile radius, kind of a ring around the airport. Generally, if you're flying your UAS, you're not going to be able to get into the LANC system or the LANC system and get direct authorization in that. So what'll end up happening is if you want to fly within what is a zero altitude area, you'll need to request an actual a waiver through the FAA, and then what they'll do is they'll coordinate that with Jermaine at the tower to release and to allow that in. So we've only had like one request that I know of when I was got involved with it, and it was some filming that was occurring in the old C-17 hangar, and they allowed a drone to film the new Netflix movie that's coming out, Gray Man. But generally around the airport, it's pretty impossible to get into the air without that additional waiver that has to go through Jermaine. And Jermaine can probably bring up more details because he's proven these things all the time.
Okay. Jermaine, did you want to add anything to that?
Not necessarily. I mean, the part of the question was also if you want to file the Part 107 waiver with the service area. That it all depends on what the piloting command wants to do. Normally, if it's for something that's going to be, long term, then it's probably preferable that you get the waiver. If it's just for a day, for a few hours, then Lance is probably the easier way to go. And the requests come through via email that there's one pending. There's myself and one other supervisor that has access to for approval. So we try to get to those as quickly as we can. But those that are sent last minute, you're expecting a response in 5 minutes or something. That's probably not going to happen. So the more lead time that you can give, the better to get the approval or the denial. And if you do get a denial, resubmit for a lower altitude if that's the case.
And if you can go in the quick links, go back to the webpage you're just at. You had a quick links. There's a UAS facility map. If you can click on that first one, yeah, it'll bring up and it'll show you the altitudes that you can basically play within the class Delta. That's what Jermaine's kind of talking about.
Hey, Mike, do you mind just posting that link in the chat?
Yep, I was trying to think of which one. I think I'll go ahead and just post this one in the chat.
Right.
To everyone.
We got a few more questions, like to hammer out real quick as we're getting towards the end. So what does the tower want to hear when on the ILS approach? Just tail number, inbound and full stop, or do we also need to, again, communicate ILS 30 and potentially location like Gunny?
Yeah, let us know where you're at, because we need to reference that is the correct aircraft on that ILS. And your intentions. Are you going to full stop, or are you intending to turn south, on a missed approach?
Okay, great. What's the best way for a turboprop to get it headed northwest and climb into the high teens VFR, say headed to Fresno?
It depends if the type of class they are. If they're MP, if they're an M class, they're going to be left at the river to make that climb, and they're going to get radar vectors through SoCal if they want flight following.
Okay.
If they're a P or Q, I'm sorry, if they're a P or Q, they can go northeast bound, go under the Bravo. But if they're an M class, they have to go left at the river.
All right. So Timothy, let us know if that answered your question. So I've heard both the FAA and controllers talk about their dislike for the LA Special Flight Rules area. When I go northwest from Long Beach, I'd love to have flight following, but the Special Flight Rules area seems to be the only option. Am I missing another way to go northwest? I've asked clearance delivery for flight following to Santa Barbara, for example, and I was told unable. We'll have to get in the air with SoCal. Climbing over the ocean to 6,500, cold calling SoCal for the coastal route is much more effort than just going direct Special Flight Rules and picking up flight following over Santa Monica. I wish there was another way, but so is that the best route? Special Flight Rules, or?
While Joe thinks about that answer, let me add this. SoCal does not do flight following through the Special Flight Rules area because that is a specific corridor.
I think it's just getting to the Special Flight Rules area.
Right. See, the problem is that the distance from here to the Special Flight Rules area is not that long.
Right.
So them going over to SoCal for SoCal just to switch them to the Special Flight Rules frequency is not beneficial, or it doesn't expedite anything else. It doesn't expedite the procedure at all. So, and it's just taking up airtime for SoCal to just like almost immediately switch them over. So I think that's part of the issue with going to the Special Flight Rules area.
And this is part of the reason that I don't like the Special Flight Rules. I prefer the coastal route if I'm relatively low, or Hollywood Park route if I'm a little bit higher. because I like being in positive control with SCT in that Bravo. I don't like the idea of everybody for himself there on that special flight rules. And somebody asked earlier, I mentioned that the first time I did that CIFRA route, I was in my 182 doing 130 knots or so maybe. I was passed by a Cessna Citation that wasn't talking on the CTAF. So instantly right there, that pilot broke at least 3 of the rules for the special flight rules area. And for my money, it's just too much of the wild, wild west, and I don't like it.
So in that scenario, though, I mean, if somebody calls up asking for flight following to Santa Barbara, I mean, are they, you know, will they get it? You know, if they say coastal route, or any suggestions there?
If they ask us and they say coastal route, we're not going to provide that. We will tell them to request flight following with SoCal.
And why is that? Just out of curiosity.
For one, it takes you, if you get flight following, you have to be left at the river. And most of the time, their intention is to go westbound. If they want to go left at the river and go south of Torrance and go around they can. I'll let them know that. It's something I'm going to communicate with that pilot.
Okay, so it would help if they say, hey, flight following Santa Barbara, you know, left turn at the river.
Yeah. Or they want to go northeastbound and they're trying to go under the Bravo, go around that way. But again, they're just very out of the way requests.
Okay.
You know, and I know they want to go westbound. That's the, you know.
Got it. Okay.
Because they're mentioning special flight rules. They want to go west. They want to go west.
I was saying coastal route in this example.
Yeah. So they want to go west. They want to end up there, but they want that service from Long Beach to the point of entry. And you really become SCT's last priority.
Okay. Another one, if ATC is very busy, I may not be instructed to change to the ground frequency after landing, in which case, what would tower controllers be happy to do? Request frequency change, declare frequency change, and contact ground, or just contact ground on your own?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, if you're exit the runway and you're, you know, wanting to, you know, talk to ground, you can switch to ground. I'm going to try to tell you to contact ground. That's my intentions, is to clear my runway and have you switch. But if you've been sitting there for a minute and I haven't spoken to you, you can contact ground or tell me, you know, tower, can I switch to ground? But you know, either works. Switching the ground works. Telling me you're switching the ground works. But yeah, I mean, like I said, my intention is to exit you off my runway and tell you to contact ground.
Okay, great question came in here from a flight school owner. In case of lost comm, where is the best position to hold to obtain light gun signals inbound to LGB from Queen Mary?
So if you're squawking lost comm and we see you come inbound, we're probably going to give you the light gun in the downwind or on, and we're going to follow you with that light gun all the way through the final. And we're going to do certain steps. You know, we're going to ask you, because maybe you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So we're going to ask you to ident, you know, things of that nature to see if there is any type of communication. But yeah, just fly the normal pattern, squawk, you know, lost comms, and we'll shoot the light gun, you know, in the downwind.
So what if you've lost all electrical power and you have no transponder?
Well, get your cell phone.
I mean, yeah, you could do that. Sure.
Yeah,
you could
call us on the cell phone.
But you wouldn't have the number. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. You know what? If you lost everything and you need to come inbound, just, you know, be careful of that downwind. You know, we have a lot of people in the pattern. I suggest maybe being at 1,500 in that downwind. You know, that's not a bad altitude to be at, because everybody else is at 1,000. You know, and if we're transitioning, we're putting people at 2,000. So I hope
okay,
that
then
helps.
a question came in. Would you rather I cold call you for a tower en route or file a flight plan?
Oh, file is always better.
Yeah, I figured that was the answer.
File is always better, but if you want to, tower and route, then just when you call initially, tell me, your call sign and that you want to tower and route to the destination. Because most of the time, if I know your call sign, I probably know your type, unless you're not from there. Then I'm asking you a million questions.
Yeah, if you file a flight plan, you don't have to play 20 questions anymore.
Correct.
Well, Mike, I think
I think we wiped the slate clean there.
I think so.
I would like to make a couple of comments about the Fullerton Airport Pilots Association. I know a bunch of our members came here tonight instead of going to Fullerton in person, and unfortunately, no bratwurst or hot dogs. So you'll have to wait for next month, I guess. We always meet on the third Tuesday of every month at AFI, the hangar formerly known as AFI on the southwest side of the airport. 6 p.m. dinner served, 7 p.m. we get together for a safety seminar of some sort. Everybody's welcome. Come on over. A couple things coming up. The June meeting is going to be not a safety seminar, but it's going to be an airport social kind of a thing with all the stakeholders on the airport management, air traffic control, all the businesses on the field. So come on over. And one of the special events there is going to be, we have a scholarship program. We're planning on giving away 2 scholarships for flight training. You can contact one of our board members, Ed Martell is the point of contact for that. Let me post his email address here. If you or somebody you know is interested in maybe getting a little scholarship for some flight training money, that's who you contact. He'll get you the forms, and those 2 scholarships will be awarded at our June meeting. And let me, what's that meeting date that month? Do you happen to know off that? I should know that. The third Tuesday in June is going to be the 21st at the summer solstice, actually. So come on over every month. Third Tuesday of the month, you're always welcome.
And then Jermaine and Joe, is there a good email address for the tower or a number, for when pilots have questions? I always encourage people to call and ask, just go straight to the source instead of asking a CFI or somebody. It's like, just go straight to the source. So is there a preferred number you guys can maybe put in the chat or something? Maybe Jermaine's cell phone number. I think he wants to. Just kidding, Jermaine. Just kidding. Trust me, my phone number has been given out many times. But if there is a preferred number or something, if you guys could share that, that'd be great. And then, did anybody else have any final words, Joe or Carl or Joe Santoro or anybody?
I'll just thank everybody for showing up and staying on. It's really quite a crowd, and do ask the questions. So thank you. We really appreciate it. I do have several notes I'm taking to the RSAT on Thursday. Appreciate it.
Carl,
Hey,
you got anything?
So one more thing, just on the lost comms things. We've had a couple pilots that get lost comms when they're on the ground frequency, and then one in particular just decided they were going to head back all the way across the airfield and cross the main runway 30 and everything to get back home. So just the same kind of thing with the lost comms. Get off the runway and just stop and either get on a phone, or if you're there long enough, tower's going to see you, and they'll call ops guy or gal to go and escort you back off the taxiway. But that's something that we had issues with.
Okay, great.
That would be sporty.
All right, Joe, Jermaine, anything you'd like to? Any final words?
Nothing from me. I'm all talked out. I
Well, thank you, Joe.
worked earlier today.
I think we should do this again. It's obvious there's a lot of interest in the pilot community for doing exactly this kind of an open forum type meeting, whether it's virtual or 3D in person. There's a hunger for this kind of just back and forth. It's awesome.
Well, and I want to thank Mike Jesh. He's one of our volunteers, so I think he's the only panelist I think right now that might not be on the clock. So we appreciate it, Mike, for all that you do for the community. You're fantastic.
No, you're more than welcome. I enjoy doing this in some sort of masochistic way, and it's talking about airplanes all night. It's one of my favorite things to do.
All right, well, I think that's it, Mike. Time to wrap it up.
All right.
We need to have something cool that, like how talk show hosts end shows or something, but we'll work on that next time.
Yeah, that's a part my planning falls down on that. I'm no good at creating that kind of thing, so I need
All
some
right, well,
help.
thanks everyone for joining. And last thing too, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the Flight Standards District Office, the FSDO. If it's an airworthiness or maintenance question or operations question, we are there to help. I know it's a cliche, but we mean it. So.
And a last thing I'll say is, if you wanted wings credit for tonight, you don't need to do anything to get that. In a couple of days, hopefully by the end of the week, we'll generate the wings validations automatically based on your attendance and your registration.
All right, Mike, don't end it yet because I'm sending my email. You know what? I'll put my email in the chat for everyone. So if they got any questions, flight standards wise, or anything from tonight's program, feel free to reach out and I will get you whatever you need. Okay, I think I spelled Jermaine's name correctly and I'll hit send. I'm just teasing. All right. All right, I think that's it. Well, have a great night, everyone.
That's all I got. Good night.
See you guys.
See you.